Right. Going on to the next one, the next session looks at the future of healthcare through innovations. We will explore the role of tech advancements such as role of genomics in biotech, the gut health and potential of personalized health. For this session, I would like to call upon our panelists, Mr. Giridhar K. Chenzi, Head Program Management, Manufacturing and Technology, Immunil Therapeutics. Immunil is committed to dramatically increase access to cell-based immunotherapies for cancer patients in India. Can we give a huge round of applause, everyone, for them? Next, I would like to call upon Mr. Kumar Sankaran, CEO, Leucine Rich Bio Limited, India's first microbiome-focused company. He is passionate about driving the paradigm shift from sick care to health care. Can we all give him a huge round of applause, everyone? And we have our moderator with us, Manbina Chawla, PhD Executive Editor, BioSpectrum Magazine India, a leading publication for all things biotech. Can you all give her a huge round of applause, everyone? Thank you.
And as we come to the end of this spectacular event that is going on since morning, I see the presence going down a bit, but thank you all for staying back and supporting this amazing session that we're going to start. So thank you, wonderful men with me, and we are here gathered talking about women's health. Who's the better person to talk with men? So we will start our conversation here. I would direct my first question to Giri. Now, this session is about healthcare and innovation, and India is doing a great job in innovation. I mean, across the biotech sector, whether it's biopharma, pharma, there's so much happening. So tell me, Giri, now you are an expert in cell and gene therapy, right? So there is talk in the town about cell and gene therapy and the potential that it offers. But if you talk about women's health, how would you direct this potential of cell and gene therapy towards getting better solution for women's health?
Sure. Yeah, Mike. Let me...
Mike.
Let me address the first part of the question about how to redirect the conversation. Women's health is human health. Cancer is an equal opportunity disease and affects all parts of the population. It is gender neutral, right? And Immunil was founded on the premise that cancer patients in India should have equal access to the most advanced therapies in the world for treating cancer, right? The therapies that we are talking about, specifically CAR T therapies, chimeric antigen receptor therapies, which is a subset of cell and gene therapies, right? These have been available as an approved therapy in the Western world, the US, Europe, in some cases in Australia, for about 7 years now. And China has the maximum number of clinical trials that are ongoing. And the question is, why is there nothing happening in India?
Exactly.
Right? Women are, there are more cancer cases diagnosed in women than in men in India. Right? It's about 53% to 47%. And when we look at cancer as the disease and the fact that it is so equal opportunity, I mean, it's the only way I can think about it. We wanted to provide access. First case, right now, if a cancer patient in India wants to get these advanced therapies, they have to go abroad, and it's in the $500,000 range. Now, who can afford that, right? So the first step was to improve access, and we started with the most validated target for cancers, which was in blood cancers, leukemia and lymphoma, right? It's an anti-CD19 directed CAR T therapy, and that's where we're starting. And to bring the conversation back to why women's health, well, blood cancers, I can share a personal, like a data point, a significant percentage of the patients that we have treated so far are women, right?
Wow.
Both adult and pediatric. So this is not like a cancer that is, exclusively for men, right? Now we are talking about liquid tumors. The future is actually directed towards treating solid tumors. And there have been multiple panelists who have talked about how breast cancer is the number one cancer in women. Funnily enough, not funnily enough, the second most diagnosed cancer is actually not cervical cancer, it's actually head and neck cancer in women, right? Not in men, in women, which is like, I'm just blown away by that. And cervical cancer is next, and then it's ovarian cancer, right? So these are all very hard to treat cancers, right? I mean, there are treatments available for breast cancer because they're caught very early. But some of the other cancers, they are not caught. We talked about the urban and the rural divide, and how cervical cancers in the rural parts of India are not caught until it is too late, right? Now, starting on the journey to have better access to these types of advanced therapies, I think is a great step to take in terms of women's health.
Absolutely, that's commendable. But I would like to ask you another question. When you said that your work is centered more about blood cancer and it's more centric towards women, so as Renita mentioned in the morning that we should have clinical trials more towards women, so you have more candidates from the women perspective.
We have a significant percentage of our patients who are women in our clinical trials. Yes, definitely.
Well, that asks for better treatment, then I think we should
yeah,
forward to
and
that.
so I mean, you can see this public information. It's on our website. These are for cancers right now: leukemia and lymphoma. They're referred to as B-cell malignancies. These are for patients who have failed all other lines of treatment in the standard of care, and their cancer has come back, relapsed and refractory, and they have no hope, right? These are people literally on their deathbed, and I think it's a very noble mission to be able to provide access to these type of treatments. The first ever patient who was treated, it was a girl, and her story is quite famous, you can look it up on the web, Emily Whitehead, who was treated for B-cell malignancies, was 10 years ago. When she was an 8-year-old kid, she was treated. She's a freshman at the University of Pennsylvania now, where this therapy was developed. Yeah.
Lots of innovation happening, so we look forward for more happening in India. Now, which directs me to Kumar, who is doing another innovation in the field of gut health. So, Kumar, you tell me what's in store for women's health in innovation for gut health.
Sure. So when we started, we started looking just at the gut microbiome and the gut health, and then we slowly realized as to the number of connections the gut has with the rest of the body, and with the microbiome playing such a central part in any kind of hormonal regulation, it just brings the women's health focus right at the center. Looking at PCOS or reproductive health or any such conditions, the gut plays a very, very strong role over there. And that's where we started understanding the nuances and the differences between the entire body, its function, how the microbiome plays with it, and how genders have kind of different ways of interacting with these microbes. So here we're talking about how a male's body is interacting differently with the microbe inside his body as opposed to a woman's body. So it's fascinating to learn of all of this, and what gives me a lot of hope and encouragement is that with looking at the gut, and especially the gut microbiome, we'll be able to solve for many of the health-related issues that women face, which is sometimes not available as standard of care.
Could you give us some examples of how things could get better for women's health?
Let's talk about reproductive health for a second over here. I mean, it's probably one of the most difficult part of the journey, I'm imagining, in a woman's life, and with all the number of IVF clinics that you can see everywhere that's sprouting up, it is a huge issue that's happening in India. It's when we looked into the science, when we looked into the data, we kind of very easily identified that having a good gut is actually correlated to having a good reproductive health and a good pregnancy. So all you have to do is eat well. It's as simple as that. But the microbiome is playing such a huge role in this that we previously didn't think it was that significant. But as we see more and more of these cases, we are now becoming stronger in our belief that just by rebalancing the microbiome, you can actually take care of that entire 12 to 15 month journey during reproduction.
Absolutely. I would just throw a random question here because I have two experts sitting here. I would want to interrelate their expertise here. So when we talk about microbiome, so there are studies which reveal that microbiome can be connected with cancer. So if you talk about women-specific cancer, whether it's cervical cancer, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, what is your take? How can it become easier if we, increase our focus on microbiome and gut health to focus on the treatment based towards women-centric cancers? How can India take a lead in that?
Sure. So there are two aspects of this. One is there's definitely a lot of correlation between any of the cancers that you mentioned and microbiome. But we don't know whether any of this is causation. We know there's a correlation, but we haven't mapped out the causation as yet. When I say we, I mean the entire scientific community put together. But what we do know, and we're slowly starting to explore this even further, is the quality of the treatment and the quality of life just dramatically improves if you rebalance the microbiome as the therapies for cancer is being given. So that itself is, I think, a huge plus. I mean, even though we're not killing cancer cells per se, we're improving quality of life much better by just taking care of the microbiome.
So a lot of innovation needs to go by in that direction. So Giri, what's your thought on that?
So currently we are operating at the cellular level, right? And there are, from a cancer perspective, the way we are looking at it right now, there is no such thing as a male cell or a female cell. All cells are the same. But we do know that there are differences at the genetic level, obviously, right? And breast cancer is one of those things where certain genes which are not expressed, those cancers cannot be treated. They're called triple negative breast cancers. So as you start going down to the genetic level, I equate the genetic level to the microbiome because they're at a fundamental level, they're not complex organisms, they're much simpler organisms. And being able to solve this problem at a fundamental, not at a cellular level, but at a genetic level, I think as we delve, there are two ways of looking at the universe. One, you look outwards and try to figure out the stars and the sun and all of that. And the other thing is you look deep inside your body and you go down to the base level and you see what is it that is different in your DNA versus what is different in somebody else's DNA and what is it that is causing some of these diseases, not just cancer, but some of these diseases to come forth, to manifest themselves. And I think there's a lot of work to be done in that area. I'm personally not like a molecular biologist or a scientist, but for me, I have a budding neuroscientist in my home, and I have a budding microbiologist at home. So I'm like, hey, you guys are my daughters. I'm like, yeah, you guys should probably start thinking in this direction and see where your research takes you. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting point that you have mentioned, because I would direct my next question based on that when you say that you have scientists at your home who are women. So now if you talk about the women workforce, since we're talking about innovation, it'll be great to know that there are a lot of women scientists in India who are maybe developing solution directed towards women. So women scientists on one side of the table and women patient on the other side of the table. So at Immunil, how does that balance work in terms of the scientists or the manufacturing experts across your workforce? How are women placed there? So
in the scientist part of it, a lot of our extremely talented scientists are women.
Yay!
Okay, a lot of them. They predominantly it's women. I'm very happy to report. On manufacturing, it's exactly the opposite. I hate to say it. I'm the head of manufacturing. I lead manufacturing, and the reason for that, I think it's partly the paradigm in the industry, right? I mean, we talked about industrial manufacturing. I think one of the panels, I think it was Pankaj Rai who mentioned the paradigm of industrial manufacturing. Yeah, you have big machines, you make a widget, you have to stand on the shop floor for 12 hours, 15 hours, whatever. And the paradigm was that women could not do that. right? Well, the nature of manufacturing, especially where I work, right, has shifted, right? I operate in cell and gene therapy, which is a vastly cleaner space in terms of environmental controls, contamination control, and the work that we do, much, much cleaner and safer than it would be in an industrial type of a manufacturing, right? So that whole thing of men and women have to do the same type of manufacturing. That is not going to change. But what we have to change is the thinking, right? While the machines have evolved and now we are working at like nanoscale and microscale and we have all these fancy instruments, the thinking in men's minds, it's still patriarchal. It hasn't changed, right? So what do we need to do to bring more women into manufacturing, right? So at Immunil, what we are actually, I mean, like I lead recruiting for manufacturing, so I'm like, everything else being equal, why would I not want to pick a woman candidate who has worked in this area and who's shown demonstrated experience? This research out there, it clearly shows that more women in the workplace, more women in leadership positions is better for the company and it's better for the economy, it's better for the country. So why would we not want to do it, right? So the thinking has to change. I mean, just last week I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues and he was like, I don't think we should bring in too many women in manufacturing because we have all these long shifts that we have to do. I'm like, no, we are bringing it in. As long as I'm here, we're going to bring them in because that's the only way that the company is going to progress. And, we talked about all these different challenges that exist, right? In terms of specifically around women's health and to bring awareness and education. And so during lunch, I was having a very interesting conversation with Anu. And she said, you have to build awareness. And my point is, the way I want to build awareness is you cannot solve for this problem by preparing for it and then solving it, right? You have to jump in head first. You cannot say, I'm going to get everything ready for women to participate in the workforce, and then I'm going to pull women into the workforce. It just doesn't work that way, right? If you want to build awareness and improve education, you have to bring the women in. And then the awareness will build automatically because they're going to be vocal about it, right? They're not going to keep quiet. The women in my family do not stay quiet, right? I mean, they're vocal about it. This is what we want to do and this is what we need. And I expect the same thing to happen in the workplace, right? So that's what we're trying to do in manufacturing anyway. Science part of it, I'm not too concerned right now because there are a lot of women scientists who are actually working and are doing wonderful things. Wonderful things, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for positive thought there. Kumar, what's your take on that? What's the woman workforce take at your company?
The thumb rule in microbiome is that the more diversity of organisms in our gut, the better it is for you. So the lesser the diversity of organisms in the gut, the more problems everyone's going to have. So that's the mindset in which we started the company. And I remember this when we were hiring our first few employees, and one of the candidates, best candidate was a woman. Typical startup office. I mean, you come out of the office, there's blood from the butcher shop and oil from a mechanic shop, mixing in front of the office, and you're wondering, is this the right environment, for a woman to come and work? And that's when we said, why are we deciding for this? Let's just call them for an interview, offer the job. If they want to take the job, let them take the job. And starting from that, most of our journey, we've had a women majority workforce at office, and it's been fabulous, especially the way the thinking happens from research to product. I look back now and I sometimes feel we wouldn't have done this if it was a male dominant workforce. Very, very simple. I mean, I keep going back to PCOS because we do a lot of work on that. For most of the scientists, men out there, it's just a syndrome. There's no way to relate it to it or anything like that. And this realization came, when we were looking into some literature. We were looking at side effects of certain kinds of therapy for the microbiome. And one of the side effects was, bald men started growing back hair. and all the boys in office got very excited, and all the women were like, yeah, so what? And that's when it hit me, this is exactly what's happening when it comes to women-related health issues. We're not thinking deeply enough of them, of the diseases. We need more diversity in our workforce to start thinking differently about it, and we need to encourage this kind of diversity. The only thing that I have failed to do is get to get at least one woman on my board. So if there's any female investor willing to join our board, please do get in touch.
The floor is open, yes. Indeed. So, okay. Now, summarizing on these particular discussion aspects that we just did, I would shift the focus broadly on personalized medicine, which is quite prominent these days, and personalized on women in particular. So, at Immunil, whatever work that you guys are doing across diseases, for personalized medicine for women, how would you prioritize so that in the long run, there is scope and potential for women's healthcare?
Yeah, so when we look at our innovation portfolio, right? So our blood cancer is just the start of the journey, and like I mentioned earlier, we're going to go into solid tumors, right? And when we look at that portfolio of what are the antigens that we want to target that are expressed across all of these different solid tumors, we take a view of what is the area of unmet need in India, right? Because that's our focus. What is the area of unmet need in India, and where will patients have where will these therapies have the largest impact? So by those two questions itself, breast cancer and lung cancer are ruled out, right? Because they are not unmet need. There are therapies out there, right?
Yes.
And people do survive, right? So when we start looking at some of the other cancers, right? So there's liver cancer, it's present quite a bit in women. There's ovarian cancer, there's kidney cancer, and I talked about earlier, head and neck oral cancer, right? When we start looking at the markers that are shared across all these different indications, then we start to hone in on what is it that we want to take a shot at, and which part of the population is going to benefit the most. It has to be the broadest population possible. Now, I cannot sit here and say it's only going to be women or it's only going to be men. It has to be the broadest population possible, because we have to answer those questions. Is it an area of unmet need, and will it have an impact, right? So that's what we look at.
Of course, that's the priority. I'll pose a similar question to Kumar. Now, earlier in the morning, we were discussing about certain diseases like obesity or mental health or cardiovascular diseases, which are, becoming more prominent in women, or at least we should address their prominence there. How can gut microbiome help in addressing these particular conditions for women, particularly for personalized therapy?
Yes, and when you're talking about the microbiome, everything becomes personalized, because you're mapping out a person's microbiome, and you're giving nutrition as a therapy based on that. And there are nuances between the male and the female microbiome, and especially for obesity, heart related diseases, the connection is very, very strong. And when therapy for this is given, especially when you're looking at nutrition and certain kind of supplements coming into play, you also have to keep in mind as to the strong role the microbiome also has with the other hormones in the body, and the way it influences that. And you plan out therapy that ways. When we started looking at mental health, and it was just a broad-based term of depression and anxiety. I mean, it's just depression, it's just anxiety, and just those terms. And when you start going into it a little more in detail, both from a manifestation point of view and from a causation point of view, there are differences between men and women, and and in particularly in the women's case, it's a little more complex to understand why certain things work the way they work. First of all, microbiome itself is such a very complex science, and when you add this kind of complexity to it, it makes it just seems to be a very large problem. But if you focus on the right kind of things, I think there are solutions available for it.
Absolutely, and we hope that the right kind of science is directed rightly towards the right solutions for women's healthcare. So before we conclude, I will check with Giri too for some last minute notes that you have gathered on the discussion that we have just had of how science can really be implemented in India, whether with government support, with the industry, the startups, academics doing so much. Is there, a right attitude or a right way to develop so that the science can be rightly directed for women's healthcare?
Yeah. For a very long time, and even now, women's healthcare has not received the attention that it should have. And I know that personally because there are 80% women in my family, 20% men, right? So I've seen it firsthand. If I were to look at it now, what is changing, I think, is that, when I was planning to come to today's conference, right? I think I'll just come in the evening because I've got some work to get done. I'll just finish my panel discussion and I'll go home. And then last night, I took a look at the agenda and said, wow, so many interesting topics, so many interesting people talking about this. I should be here for the whole day. So I tried to come in early this morning. And I think what has changed is that most people are speaking up, right? So that's building awareness. That's a very good thing. Money makes the world go round. Venture capitalists see an opportunity to generate value in this, right? That had to change. We cannot always say that, it is a government problem to solve, right? So I think it takes, like we heard from, I think Sridarshan earlier about what the government of Karnataka is doing in terms of the funds that they have allocated, which was enlightening to me. I did not know that. I wish they would publicize that kind of stuff, right? And I talked about all the digital therapeutics. I'm still blown away by the ingenuity behind digital therapeutics. So I think it's not any one thing. I think it's a combination of things. But I think from a government perspective, probably more policies directed towards, more attention towards women's health, deeper penetration into the other parts of outside of the urban. I wouldn't just say necessarily rural, but the semi-urban parts of India, and for entrepreneurs to actually make that step in and say that start somewhere. I mean, you want to start in Bangalore, hey, start in Bangalore, but don't keep your reach to Bangalore. Go deeper into other parts of India, and I think it's going to take a lot of people holding hands together and walking together. It's going to slow us down a little bit. We cannot all go at the same pace, but I think we will get there.
Thank you, Giri. And Kumar, what does the scientist in you say about this? How can science be rightly put to find the right solution for women's healthcare?
I mean, this is a topic that I can go on and on about. I mean, my pet peeve is most clinical trials and research that is being done. You find, it's always a male-dominant study that's always been done. So I think, starting from there, we need to focus a lot more on participation of women in every aspect of science, and that's where the awareness and the need for growing the scientific community and growing research around this will come from. Adding to one point Giri was making on the VC community, we started in 2014, and compared to now, it was really bad times when to talk about women's health at that point of time. Now it's much more receptive. People want to know more about what we're doing, especially in women's health and how we can impact. And I think that's a small but significant change. I mean, these are the thought leaders, and these are the people who are going to push other people to start talking more about it and bring out the science to the open.
Thank you, Kumar. Thank you so much. And now I would open the floor to the audience. If anybody has any questions for our experts, please do so. Anybody?
Hi, very interesting topic. I just wanted to, ask about. You talked about, Giri, about CAR T cell therapy, and I know that it's a very, very expensive therapy. Novartis actually launched it also. I mean, it's globally launched. The point that keeps coming back, and I go back to what the NASCOM person spoke some time back about low cost and low skill usage. How do you manage that? And you're talking about the future of healthcare and how this is going to happen. And in both cases, even microbiomes, how are we going to make this affordable in a country like ours, and also usage, because we don't have so many. I mean, for CAR T cell also you need the right kind of hospitals and doctors. I know in Singapore they have specific hospitals that use CAR T cell. So how does one work around this? Because if these two barriers can be addressed, I think we have something really meaningful for a country like ours. So just to both of you, what would be?
Yeah, let me take the CAR T cell part of it first. You're absolutely right. These are phenomenally expensive, right? This was the way monoclonal antibodies were also when they first were approved in the mid 80s, right? Now they are available for a fraction of the price in India, made to global quality, right? Now with CAR T therapies, the approach that we have taken is, the first step is improving access, right? Which is being able to make global quality CAR T cell therapies in India for patients in India. Otherwise you have to go abroad, right? So that's the first barrier, is improving access to patients in India. The affordability part of it is a much more difficult question to answer right now. It is a longer journey, and there are several innovations that we have to pay attention to be able to bring down the cost of the therapy to patients, right? There is process related innovation. There is innovation, surprisingly enough, in the basic raw materials that we use to make these therapies. Right now, almost everything is imported because there is not the ecosystem in India to be able to make these at the global quality but local cost, right? It is probably the toughest challenge that any cell and gene therapy company based in a low and middle income group country is going to be faced with. How to make it more affordable to the population. Now, to advance usage, I'll tell you, we talk to clinicians all the time, right? And all the clinicians that we speak to are hyper aware of CAR T cell therapies, right? They're hyper aware. India has, I believe, more than 150 or 200 high volume, high quality bone marrow transplant units where these CAR T therapies are given, right? That's where you do stem cell transplants, right? That's where CAR T therapies are given. So in terms of being able to improve access even further in India, it's not going to be in one pocket somewhere in, say, Delhi or Mumbai or Chennai or something. There has to be a model where it makes it democratic in terms of access all over India, pan-India, right? There are major logistical challenges associated with it, which we are working our way through, in terms of supply chain and raw materials and all of those kinds of things. The other difference that we have, right, between us and the West is that as a standard of care, right, you have a first line treatment, then you have a second line treatment, then you have a third line treatment, then comes CAR T therapy, right? That's the approval mechanism. India looks at it as a therapy. Whether you want to use it as a first line or as a last line, it's entirely up to the treating physician, right? They trust the judgment of the physician to be able to do this. Now, increasingly in the West, looking at the efficacy of these therapies, several indications. So Novartis has a product, you're right, Kimraya. Kite Gilead has one, right? Johnson & Johnson has one, Bristol Myers Squibb has one. And they both cover B-cell malignancies and multiple myeloma, right? These are the two indications that are covered. And increasingly, they're starting to get approvals for an earlier line of treatment because the FDA and the physicians are starting to see that these are so efficacious that why would you want to put a patient through multiple cycles of chemotherapy, ruin the quality of their T cells, right, which is the raw material that you need to make the CAR T therapy in the first place, right? Why would you want to degrade their quality of life because it is because that has been the paradigm of the standard of care. So things are starting to change, and this is still relative. We're not even in complete the first decade of CAR T cell therapies. So we have a long ways to go, but I think I'm very hopeful that the pace of technological change is going to be exponential in this case, right? And I think we will get there sooner than we got there for, say, pharmaceuticals or for monoclonal antibodies, yeah, in terms of accessibility and affordability.
Thank you so much. Any other question? I see a hand there. Yes.
So my question is, like, keeping healthcare in mind rather than sick care, I would like to know, can we improve cancer patients' health with nutraceuticals? Or in the future, can pharmaceutical be replaced by nutraceutical, or both go hand in hand?
Can I take that? I'll just make one statement, okay? And this was made by one of our co-founders, Dr. Siddharth Mukherjee, in an interview with, I think, India Today. 70% of cancers caused by smoking. All right? Clear. Okay? So, if you want to shift from sick care to health care, please don't smoke. Okay? That includes chewing tobacco. Right? And the part about nutraceuticals, I think Kumar is a much better person to answer the question, but that's the only thing I'll say. Like, you have to take better care of your health.
Thank you, sir.
Rather than nutraceuticals, I would say nutrition itself. I mean, if we can focus a lot more on nutrition, that itself could help in any kind of cancer therapy. Smoking, because you mentioned smoking, small anecdote over here. To a certain degree of confidence, we'll be able to tell if a person's from a rural background or an urban background just by looking at the microbiome. And one of the major reasons is all the pollution that we are interacting with. So it's, and we see from there how the cancer drivers start to come in from a microbiome perspective. So it's not only food, it's also the environment and the lifestyle that you live with, which will make an impact.
Thank you, sir.
Any other question? Okay, I see none. So thank you so much. Thank you, speakers. And we wrap up. Thank you.
Hello. Right, thank you so much, everyone.